Well, hello, this is Pastor David Moreno. I'm the pastor of missions at Mountain View Community Church. And today we have the privilege and the blessing of having a couple minutes with Kristine V, right? As you know, we're having these missions conversations, a time for us as a church to hear what God is doing around the world. So Kristine, welcome to our set.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Kristine, for those people that might be watching that don't know much about you, tell us something about yourself.
I have lived in Maryland my whole life in this area. I've been coming to Mountain View for, I think, 19 years. And in 2010, I started working for the Church for the Children's Ministry.
And how did you come to know Jesus?
I was born in a Christian family, and so I got to know him my whole life. I officially prayed the prayer when I was 5 in my grandmother's kitchen, but yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So now, after all these years of serving here at church, you are in a very special moment in your life where you are following God's call to the mission field. So how did you end up here?
In the summer of 2014, I went on a trip to China for 2 weeks to help with an English camp there, and it was through a church, and so there was some Christian college students from China helping with the camp too. Mm-hmm. And one of them, one day I asked her something about her family, like if she had grown up in a Christian family, and she said no. So I asked her how she'd become a Christian then. And so she shared that when she was little, she had found a storybook in a bookstore, and her dad didn't want to buy it for her, but she begged and begged him to buy it for her, and finally he agreed. And it was a book of Bible stories, but she didn't know what a Bible was. She had no idea that the stories were supposed to be true, but she loved the stories. She said her whole life growing up, she loved these stories. And then it wasn't until she was in college that she actually met a Christian and heard the gospel for the first time. Wow. And was able to come into a relationship with Jesus. And when I heard her testimony, it just burdened me so much because, like I said, I was born in a Christian family, so I've gotten to know Jesus my whole entire life. So while I was growing up reading those exact same stories, I knew that they were real and that they meant something for me. And she was just, she didn't have one single person in her life who could tell her about Jesus, while I was surrounded with it for my whole life. And when I went on this trip, there was already a verse in my mind that had been bothering me, and it was Ephesians 2:12, which Paul was writing to Gentiles, and so he said they were Christians when he was writing to them, but he said, remember that at that time you were separate from Christ, and you weren't part of Israel, you didn't know about the promises of God. Yep. And the specific phrase that stood out to me was, he described them as having no hope and without God in the world. And that had already been bothering me because I've never spent one moment of my life without God in this world, and I wouldn't want to. I can't imagine what that would be like. So then hearing this girl's story and how she spent all those years when she could have known God and been in a relationship with him, because clearly he was speaking to her through those stories already, but there was just no one who could talk to her about Jesus. So that, combined with that verse, convicted me 6 years ago that I should go someplace where there are fewer Christians. And I thought that it would be China because that's where all this happened. And I tried 3 different times to go to China, and God closed the door on all of those times. And so I said, okay, maybe that is not actually the direction I'm supposed to be going in. And then I ended up going to France to work with people from North Africa, because that's another area where they just have no opportunity to hear about Jesus.
That's right.
And then in France, I ended up leaving before I was supposed to. I felt like there wasn't something for me to do there, and at that time I thought, okay, I tried the missions thing and it did not work out. I must have been wrong about that. I'm sure God taught me something through all of this, but now I'm just supposed to invest here. Back at Mountain View, I ended up back here, and yeah, I thought I was here to stay.
But
Yes, but then last summer I went with you and a group from Mountain View to the Middle East, and the leader of the team there had been here at Mountain View, and he said that they were praying that someone from our team would end up going there, and I knew for a fact that it was not going to be me because I already tried that and it didn't work out. So we were there. I just went as a short-term thing. I just thought I was going to help refugees just for a couple weeks, and that would be great. And I remember we were staying at the guest house, and I was on the roof one morning, and I was partly just looking at the view and partly reading my Bible and partly praying. And at one point I just thought, isn't it so nice that I can just be here and then leave and not come back? And I was thinking that one moment, and then the very next moment, it was like just something completely shifted in my brain, and I started thinking, actually, maybe I should consider coming back here. And it was such a big shift that it was almost like I could physically feel it happen in my brain. And
Wow.
I know it was from God, not me, because I started crying because I did not want to do this again. But here I am.
Yeah, well, that's how the Lord works. You know,
Yeah.
it takes several times and several years to confirm, to discern different life experiences that God uses to shape us, and even difficult situations as well that can reroute us. And I think you have been persistent, and that's really a good thing to see, that in the midst of the ups and downs, you have allowed yourself to be open to hear from the Lord, and have responded, you have obeyed, you have said yes to Him, regardless of the cost. So why should we, there are, I'm sure, many people in our community, here in our church, they think about missions and they say, well, that's too far, or like maybe there's so many needs around us here, why not focusing here in our church? You serve here at church. So why should we care about going to the nations, far away places?
That's something that's been hard for me, because I still am very passionate about, especially kids here growing up in America, and just wanting them to know Jesus now, like I did when I was a kid, and just to be able to walk with Him through high school and college and into adulthood. And I think they're growing up in a very difficult culture and time, and so that's still something I feel very strongly about. But at the same time, there's a whole church full of people here who can do that and be there for them. And one time, I don't know the exact statistic, I can't remember, but it was something like 80-something% of people in the world would say they do not know a Christian. And so that's something else that is just stuck in my head. I heard that a few years ago, and just that there are definitely, for sure, people in America who don't know Jesus. There are unreached people in America, but there are so many Christians also still in America. And we just need to spread out within America even, and spread out throughout the world, so everybody has an opportunity.
Yeah, so your heart is to go to those places where there's less witness of the gospel, right? And in the Middle East, especially the place that you are going, there are families, individuals that have come from different regions of the Middle East as refugees, seeking a better life with a lot of pain and hurt, and also they are disappointed about their religious affiliation, religious background, and there's an opportunity to present the hope, right? The hope of Jesus to them. So you spent a few months in the Middle East earlier this year as a way to confirm, to discern for you the next steps, right? Can you tell us, what did you see while you were there for an extended period of time?
I was there for 2 months, and a lot of what I saw was the inside of the guest house where I was staying, because it was in the middle of
the COVID hit.
Yeah, COVID, and so their version of stay at home was very, very strict. We couldn't leave leave our home like, unless we were going to the grocery store. Like we couldn't go for a walk even. We just had to stay inside. So I got to know that guest house very well, and also it was nice to get to know some of the other missionaries that also lived at the guest house. But before the lockdown happened, I got to be a part of the projects that are going on there that are all run by a church. So it's a local church of Jordanian people and Egyptian people and Iraqi people, and then a big team of missionaries from Brazil. And just to see them just being the church, not just when on Sundays or Wednesdays or whatever, but being the church every single day in their community, trying to care for their neighbors, but also for the refugees who were there in their community. And even during the lockdown, I got to see that some because I knew that the pastor of the church and some of the other leaders were going out and trying to make sure the refugee families had what they needed, even though it was illegal for them to be out and they could have been arrested or and fined. They did it anyway.
Wow. So you said it a couple of moments ago that you're joining a local church. It's a ministry run by a local church. That's one of the greatest things about your about the place that you are going. That is a ministry not run by foreigners only, right? But it's a mixture of local believers, local Christians, local leaders in a church setting that are reaching out to their community, right? That being the light for that community. So tell us more about that team that you're joining. And perhaps you can also say, things that you potentially will be doing as you're with that team. Okay.
So the team there has several projects. I think I don't even know all of the projects because they have a lot going on, but they have, so the team is made up of, that participates in the project, is made up of people from the church, it's made up of refugees, and it's made up of the missionaries that are there. So they meet every single day that there's ministry. They meet first at the church to have devotions together, which I think is awesome. And then they split up into the different projects. So there's a women's center where refugee women can make some crafts. And I know, while I've been here, I've been seeing some of the things they're still doing, and they're starting to make some like jelly that they're gonna sell at a local store. And it's just a way for the refugees to make a little bit of money because they can't work there officially. So that's the Women's Center. And then there's a soccer club and a school. Yes, there's a school. They call it a mini school. It's not all day long, it's a few hours. And hopefully that's where I'll be able to help with teaching some English and Bible. And then a big part of it is visiting. They have teams that go and visit the refugee families just to encourage them and also see what their needs are.
Yeah, and yes, as a way of testifying, I've been there several times, and I've seen the development of the openness of families when we go into one of these homes of refugees, and how the temperature or their, just their desire to hear more about the gospel. I remember the first few times that I went, you could maybe pray but not say anything about Jesus. The second time or third time that I went, you could say more about the gospel. But I think it was last time, I visited one of the first families that I visited the first time, and they wanted to really come to know Jesus. So it's been great. It's been such a blessing to see how the development of relationships and showing true love, with being the hands and feet of Jesus, has warmed the hearts of those refugee families in such a way that they really want to hear the gospel message. So I think you going and serving under that ministry, it's really awesome. So the plan is for you to go in September, unless things change with COVID, right? But you'll be over there by the end of the year, right? We pray for that. So how can we as your church, how can we as part of your family here in our church partner with you as we send you to the Middle East?
So I definitely need people praying for me. One thing, when I was in France, working with Muslim people, and just seeing how it just seemed impossible to like nothing we can do at all. There's no right words to say, no right amount of loving on them that can possibly free them from the demonic powers that have been holding them for centuries and centuries. So it has to be, God has to do things with his power, and only praying is going to make that possible. So lots of people praying would be good.
And I think you also need finances so that you can sustain the work. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I need I need a certain amount monthly to be able to live there and to go to Arabic school. I need to take Arabic lessons, and so I need people, especially I need monthly partners who will be able to give monthly, but also one-time financial gifts help also.
So, church, this is a great opportunity to invest in one of our own. As many of you know, Kristine has been serving faithfully here at Mountain View, investing in our children's lives, and she's very talented with all the ministry for children, and also she has a talent to share the story of the gospel, speak about Jesus to others, and we believe in her. The missions leadership team really believes in sending her as part of one of our own. So I'm encouraging you to pray for her, and if God leads you, to also invest in becoming a partner financially so that she can be there for the long run. So Kristine, thank you again for your time and for saying yes to Jesus, saying yes to his call upon your life. And we believe God is going to do great things through you and the ministry of our friends as well in the Middle East.